Good evening. Today is September 26, 2022. I'll hereby declare a quorum present and call this meeting of the Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners to order. We will set the agenda as published with we have one change on here. You identify that. It's under new business. Leave 11A1 and 11A2. Will be read together at the advisement of council if there's no objection on that. Yes, sir, Vice Mayor.
Sheila has got something printed off for me that I wanted to add to, if we could, to the agenda. It is rules of quorum. I thought we had them at the table tonight, but she didn't get them. I think she's going to get them actually.
Okay.
Can we?
I tell you what we can do. If there's no objection, I will put off set agenda. And if our fire chief's available, I will ask him to go ahead and lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance, and then we'll revisit the agenda if there's no objections. Hearing none, I'll recognize our fire chief, Chief Luffman.
Thank you. Will you pray with me, please? Gracious God, we thank you for this beautiful day, and we thank you for this evening that we can come together in the season of business. And we ask, dear Lord, that you be present in these proceedings, that we may continue your gospel, continue your commitment to caring for your children, dear Lord, and that we may heap praises upon your name. You ask in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8, who you will send. Well, these elected officials and staff and administrators have answered, here we are, send us. Now, and we enter into business, dear Lord, we will ask that we continue your gospel of Matthew 25:40, where you say, if we do for the least, we do for you. And dear Lord, we do so in a manner hopefully pleasing in thy sight. We ask for grace and peace during these proceedings, Lord, and that we treat each other with respect in a way that glorifies your name. For it is in your son's name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. And I'll recognize our Vice Mayor again because we're back on set agenda.
Yes, sir. What I'd like to do is to present a resolution. If you pass that down, I'm so sorry. It's a decorum and debate rules commission meetings. It's from Robert's Rules of Order, and I'd like to insert that if I could into the agenda. Just at a convenient location, be fine.
Is this discussion item or what?
It will be a resolution.
Do we have a copy of the resolution?
No, we actually don't.
So we don't have the resolution created yet?
He has the document. It's just, it looks like this.
Yes.
But no, we do not have the resolution. I would have to go create it.
Vice Mayor, would you be okay with just adding this as a discussion item? And
Sure, that'd be fine.
okay. We'll add this quorum and debate rules as a discussion item. We'll put that at the heel of our agenda. That will be our change. We'll add that. We will read 11A1 under new business and 11A2 at the same time. Any objections? Hearing no objections, I'll set the agenda as published with the exception of 11A1, 11A2 being read and the discussion item added to the heel of the agenda. Our next item on the agenda is approval of our minutes. We have one set from our regular meeting on September 12th, 2022. Have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or discussions on those minutes? All right, all in favor of the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes carry. Next item on the agenda is our citizen comments. This would be the only opportunity you'll have to address the commission tonight. Unlike the planning commission, we do not take comments on the individual items themselves. We reserve the right to terminate any comments if the remarks become abusive to other citizens, employees, or fellow board members. The board is under no obligation to respond to questions from the floor. We'd ask you to come forth. You'll be recognized for 3 minutes, and that's pursuant to City Code, Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 220. I'd ask you to state your name and address for the record. So anybody with comments, I'd ask you to come forward at this point, please.
Good evening. I'm Craig Working, 371 Gilly Road.
All right.
I've got some concerns about the development on 371 Bender's Ferry. I've sent every one of you guys an email yesterday with the questions I'd like you to consider. One of them has to do with the RS20 rezone request. Now, RS20 is a minimum 20,000 square foot lot. I understand that the entire acreage of this property has been divided by 20,000 to get 354 homes. My concern about this is that RS20 guidelines has a minimum lot width of 90 feet. I understand this development has a lot width of 56 feet. So I'd like to understand why these lot widths are being allowed or being considered. The front yard depth has a minimum 40 feet, backyard depth 30 feet. Side, depending on the number of stories, is 10 feet for 2 stories, 15 feet for 3 stories. And the house structure itself can be a maximum of 35% of the lot. So my understanding and looking at the plans, this does not meet those RS20 guidelines. So that's my comment and concern on that one. The next one is City Ordinance 2021-50. It was adopted on 12/13/2021. I want to go on record saying that I do support this ordinance. I think it's a good thing for the city based on the guidelines. What I don't understand is why this development is being considered at a smaller square footage than this ordinance defines. And my concern is if we approve this going forward at the current plan, that it will set a precedence for other developers to come in and say, well, you approved it for this development, you have to approve it for mine. So what I would like for the commission to do is hold the line on this ordinance, on this development, and hold the line on these developments going forward. As was stated before, the draw to Mount Juliet is the landscape, the trees, the larger lots, and what I'm seeing is very disconcerting as far as the density of the neighborhoods are concerned. And I would like you guys to consider this as you're looking at the PUD on this development and all future developments. And I'd like to acknowledge Commissioner Justice for proposing this, because I do think it is a good thing. And that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, sir, for your comments. Anyone else with comments for the commission? Name and address for the record, please.
I live at 900 Gay Winds Drive, and I also have concerns about the property
Okay.
on Bender's Ferry Road.
I didn't get your name, ma'am.
It's Kathleen Herbert
All right, thank you, ma'am.
on Gay
You're
Winds
recognized
Drive.
for 3 minutes.
It won't take that long. So I attended the recent meeting concerning Moss property on Bender's Ferry. I wrote letters to all of the commissioners, as did many of our neighbors and other neighbors on York Road. And it was to express concern about the impact to the current residents who access Bender's Ferry Road. So those concerns included that Bender's Ferry is just a 2-lane road with no shoulders. It's used as a shortcut from Route 109, Burton Road, Davis Corner, and Mays Chapel. The Joy Church currently stops or blocks traffic every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. The intersection at Bender's Ferry and Lebanon Road is a congested nightmare every morning and afternoon, and whenever the Joy Church is meeting. So just this evening, the traffic was bumper to bumper from Bender's Ferry all the way to Park Glen. And that's 6 o'clock at night. So it's after the schools are out and a lot of people are already home. So some of us are wondering if the city made an agreement with the developer about the Moss property before the affected county residents were given an opportunity to voice concerns, because now you want to annex that property into the city and allow the 350 houses to be built on Bender's Ferry in spite of the impact on the county residents living in that area. So as residents and taxpayers, we count on you to make decisions in our best interests with future growth plans in mind, not just for tax revenue. And we feel like this subdivision should not be built until Bender's Ferry and Lebanon are widened with shoulders. There's adequate police, fire, and schools to serve this new neighborhood, especially one of that size. And there's more than one road for ingress and egress to the property, that all the traffic should not flow in and out of Bender's Ferry. So we only hope that it's not too late for modifications to be made to the plan before it's too late. We understand that not all the residents of Mount Juliet see the problems on this side of the city, but we have made our elected officials aware of the issues, and we ask that you respond with these in mind. Your service to this lovely city is truly appreciated. So thank you for the chance to make my comments.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the Board of Commissioners? All right. Got a taker.
My name's John Mowbray, and I live at 1718 Burton Road, Mount Juliet.
Thank you, sir. You're
I just
recognized
wanted-
3 minutes.
Just want to commend the first two speakers. They did an outstanding job pointing out the same views that all of us do that live on Bender's Ferry, Burton Road, Davis Corner, and that entire area, and the impact, the huge negative impact that this development is going to have on all the existing taxpayers in this county. 350 or 354 homes added to Bender's Ferry is going to be a disaster. As has already been stated, the intersection of Bender's and Lebanon Road just cannot handle that additional impact. In addition, I'd like to point out that several years ago, Wilson County Commission evaluated a proposed development at Gilly Road, very similar to this, very large number of houses. They evaluated it based on our input and others and determined that it was not feasible to develop anymore on Bender's Ferry until Lebanon Road is fully expanded all the way from Bender's Ferry to Highway 109. And I urge you to give serious consideration to their ruling on it as well. Just there is not the infrastructure in that area to handle this volume of additional homes, additional cars, persons, etc. I mean, pick whatever infrastructure you want to include in that. The infrastructure just is not there, and I'm not hearing any proposals on corrective actions to take to add that infrastructure to prepare for this. So anyway, please give serious consideration to either declining this altogether or greatly reducing it from an RS20 that has already been pointed out that the lot sizes are way below the standard. They don't meet the standard that's established. There's an issue there that needs to be looked at as well. So do whatever you can to reduce the number of houses. If we've got to have this development, please reduce the number of houses as much as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for citizen comments?
Good evening, Claudia Richardson, 1860 Burton Road.
All right, thank you.
And I
Three-
approach this from a common sense point of view. So I hear you annex this property into the city limits. You want all the benefits of all the houses, but you leave the traffic in Wilson County. Like everybody else said, and they're much better speakers, that the traffic is already horrendous. So looking at it from the traffic point of view, or let's go neutral. Let's look at this property, the plan, and look at it from the point of police, fire, emergency management, maybe city planning. If you look at it, there's 2 entrances on Bender's Ferry, and there's no other in and out on this property. It would just make sense, and I'm sure somebody would have probably said some already, to have another in and out towards York Road, which that community was really outspoken last time when everybody on Bender's Ferry was maybe a little surprised at the time already. There should definitely be, from the standpoint of emergency, fire, police, be another egress or, entrance in and out. That's what I'm saying. The last meeting also, you talked about a wall, a berm, a kind of border towards the residents on York Road. I'd say if they don't want to embrace these new citizens, they should maybe build their own fences in the yards, and not this is something done by you or us as taxpayers. But I definitely think if there's too many houses for sure, and everybody here in last time in the meeting, we were all moved to Mount Juliet because of, we know where we're coming from the dense neighborhoods, too close to your next door neighbor. That's why we're all here and love Mount Juliet so much. But don't pack them all in, and give some room that people can get in and out of neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else to address the Board of Commissioners? If not, I will close citizen comments. All right, seeing none, we will close citizen comments and move to commissioner comments and reports. And with that, I'll recognize Commissioner Trevette.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight, as well as on TV. I know we all got busy lives as well as family and friends. So anytime that we get folks to come into these type of meetings, it's always nice to hear from you, whether if it's positive or negative. We are listening to you. And obviously, I mean, we can't get into too much information, but I will tell you there's been a lot of discussion about this project that, many folks have also discussed tonight. And we hear you, and we are trying to do our best to make sure that we follow those guidelines. Would like to roll over to a little bit more of a positive note. This past weekend, we had a local business, the Southern Rhythm Farm Fest. I'll tell you, this is their second event here within the city, and they've done a great job, as well as our citizens also help support that local business. So it was kind of nice. The first year that they did this was earlier this summer. They had a little over 150 residents that showed up. This year we had over 300 vehicles and 1,200 plus people. So great job to that business, as well as also thank you for all the citizens that came out to help support them. Also, for the folks that are here tonight, you're seeing a nice young man over here, Paul Emhoff. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. He's with MTSU News. So he's a student here, just obviously doing a report, as well as also learning a little bit about local government. So thank you for being here tonight, sir. Mayor, that concludes my report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'll recognize Commissioner Hefner.
Thank you, Mayor. Want to say congratulations to the new hires. Mount Juliet Police Department. We've added 5, I think, in the last couple of weeks. So 2 in dispatch, Christy and Krista, I believe. Did I pronounce that right? And also Adam, Seifer, and Daniel. Two of those officers come from Metro, and other is a U.S. Air Force veteran. So very excited to have them join Mount Juliet family. Also, just real quick, we're gonna get into this later, but I do appreciate everybody coming out and listening to your comments on Bender's Ferry project. Just know, I mean, these decisions aren't taken lightly. I also sit on the planning commission, so I did get a little bit more in depth in the details on these projects. There is a lot that goes into the review, and there's a lot of consideration that I personally take into account. Most of which, if not all, will come out this evening. But just know we don't take these decisions lightly. I think I can speak for everybody on this board. So we appreciate all the input and the feedback coming from the citizens. Also want to congratulate Crylike Realty, 30 years in Mount Juliet. It's pretty impressive. So I want to give them a shout out. Congratulations to their 30 years servicing the city of Mount Juliet. Also, happy to announce Mr. Martin and Justin Beasley. We're going to be putting out, and there's more information to come on this, but we're going to be putting out a citywide quarterly newsletter that citizens can sign up for. Each commissioner, if they choose to, will have an opportunity to add content to that newsletter. But it'll be something that any citizen, anybody can subscribe to. So looking forward to more information to come out on that. Also, congratulations to some Tennessee football teams this weekend. So I know Andy Barlow's wearing his Tennessee shirt. So yeah, big shout out to Tennessee, the Titans, and let's not forget MTSU. They beat 25th ranked University of Miami over the weekend. So big congrats to all of our Tennessee football teams. Last but not least, speaking of projects, we've got a lot of development that's being proposed in the city right now. I encourage each of the BOC members at the October Planning Commission meeting to tune in, get into the details on these projects because they're pretty significant. Some of them there's a lot of detail to them. So get as much information as you can on them because they will be at some point showing up here at the BOC, and you need to be well equipped with information and details surrounding those projects. So once again, thank you all for coming out this evening, and for those watching, appreciate you tuning in. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'll recognize Commissioner Mullally.
Okay. Again, I'd like to thank you for coming out as well. And I always appreciate the citizens' feedback and input. Newsletters, I do a monthly newsletters, and mine will be going out this weekend. And so I'm glad to hear the city's doing one. That's great. Just a few events coming up. October 3rd, the police department and the fire department are having a basketball game. It's a fundraiser, nonprofit fundraiser, Mount Juliet High School at 7 p.m. Police is holding a chili cook-off for the National Faith and Blue Weekend. That's October 8th from 11 to 2 at police headquarters. Providence Pumpkin Bash is not a city event, but in front of the Regal Theaters in Providence Marketplace. They're having on October 8th, starting at 10 a.m. They'll host their free family fun Providence Pumpkin Bash, and lots of activities for kids. They'll have a DJ and a petting zoo. So that'll be something fun to take the kids to. And then on October 22nd is our annual Halloween in the Park. That's always a very big event. So that's at Charlie Daniels Park from 11 to 3. Free family event. And that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, I'll recognize our Vice Mayor and District 1 Commissioner Ray Justice.
Thank you, Mayor. Got a couple of things I want to talk about. I'm actually going to address a couple of comments. So, Mr. Working, I think you're still here. Okay. yes, there were some suggestions that were made at the planning commission level in regard to the new development on Benders Ferry Road. Those suggestions were taken, and I caught some heat over the suggestions that were making, and they actually was approved at that time. And the planning commission agreed with my suggestions. As is their right, the developer decided that they didn't like my suggestions, and they decided to change those through the court. So we went through a negotiation process, and it led us to where we are tonight. And we'll be voting on this and going through some of the particulars of the development to hopefully get something that everybody can live with into the process. I will tell you, some of you may remember Judge Bob Hamilton up in Lebanon, and he used to tell me that when everybody walked away mad, he knew he'd made the right decision. And I think that probably tonight's going to be one of those deals where nobody's going to walk out of this happy. So you can just get ready for that and go ahead and just microwave back here if you want some popcorn. So get ready. It's going to be enjoyable. There was characterization made that we did not give anybody in the county an opportunity for input. I will tell you that this went completely through the Planning Commission in Lebanon, through the Wilson County Commission, before it ever came to us. So whatever happened in up there, y'all were given an opportunity, or should have been given an opportunity by your representative in Wilson County to have input into that project. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen. But we can't give you notification of something that's happening in Wilson County, which is, takes place up in Lebanon. That's not what we do in the city of Mount Juliet. I will tell you that one of the big issues that we had was the fact that the water table coming off of the Moss property had to do, or is eventually going to wind up in either Cedar Creek or Old Hickory Lake. So if you've got a system out there that is not a contained system like a city sewer system, then you can imagine what else winds up in Cedar Creek or Old Hickory Lake. Probably a whole lot more of what we've already got, but we don't want more of it. It's a beautiful piece of property. I used to trespass over there quite frequently when Mac and them wasn't looking, and gig frogs on the pond when I was a kid. Been over there all my life. The Moss family is an institution over here, and they're friends of not only mine, but our community. And so, when it gets to the point where there's this much angst involved, you can imagine it hurt my heart to go through the process that we've had to get through to get to tonight. So I will tell you that there's also, with that being said, we wound up going to a good spot, because we wound up going into where now we're working with the county, Lebanon, and Watertown because of this whole situation right here. And we're getting to go through the Urban Growth Boundary Coordinating Committee to establish boundaries that fall within our urban growth boundary that someday would be annexed into the city. That has to be approved by every municipality and the county before it happens. Another upside to this whole project that we're discussing tonight is that we are negotiating with the Wilson Water and Wastewater Authority as to areas that we as a city will serve with the sewer, and areas that we will not be serving. Those are changing. So that's also coming. So out of all this mess, Mark Heisley with the chamber says, it's like making sausage. You have a big old mess that you don't want anybody to look at, but you hope you wind up with something that's at least palatable when you're finished with it. I hope that's where we're at tonight. With that, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And I'll just add from my comments, I appreciate everybody who has come out tonight. I know there's primarily these comments have been directed about one development in particular. And I will add this, and it probably applies to everybody up here, as far as I know. I did not in any way solicit this development or request it in any way. This was initiated by an applicant. They went through the process in that. We're obligated to go through the process with the applicant to do it. These types of developments are very unique in the fact that when you get on the edge of the city it's one of the things where if the city says no, then the door is open to go to the county. So it's kind of double jeopardy for us in some ways on this. We've been through this. It's gone through our planning commission. I don't think there was any appetite by the applicant for what was discussed. And here we are, and this is trying to settle this before this is worked out through the court system. So our initial offer on this is we're just kind of, I don't know, wrapped up in this as we proceed forward with it. And there'll be more discussion on that, I know, when it gets on the floor. But again, thank you for coming out. It's always good to see people that participate in the process that we have here before us. With that, I mean, we have a wonderful city. I appreciate everybody and all the new staff and everything that the department heads do and our city manager and the work that they keep doing to move this city forward. And that's going to conclude my comments, and I'll recognize our city manager. Sir, you recognize?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, everybody for coming out tonight, and those watching at home. I'd like to start by thanking the commission for recognizing the young man earlier at about 6:15, I guess, before the main meeting started. For those of you who weren't here, there was a young man, his little sister, and the young man apparently found a weapon in the woods behind his home. Unfortunately, a lot of times that leads to tragedies. In this particular case, the young man told his parents about it. The police department spotted, secured the weapon, and the young man got recognized tonight for a job well done along with the parents. That makes us feel good as a city because it shows they know who to turn to, and your parents always the best person to go to because your parents will always be your best friends no matter what happens. So I want to commend that young man. It did my heart good to see him sitting there with his little sister because I said 30 years from now you'll understand just how important this particular day was to be recognized by your fellow citizens and the elected body. So thank you for doing that. That's what makes our community so special. Also, I know that a lot of folks are here tonight that like a lot of the new businesses we get. And I want to reiterate to a lot of folks that we recruit businesses that the residents want, but unfortunately, sometimes businesses come that we don't necessarily recruit. And we get kidded about that a lot. So keep the business suggestions coming. There's a lot of new businesses we're getting like Chipotle and Whataburger and places like that. We're working on some sit-down restaurants. There's a really nice restaurant that wants to be in our city right now. A lot of the problems is a lot of times is getting the appropriate location, the perfect spot. So, it's like the Cadillac dealer and other business we're getting. That's because the citizens in this room and those watching out there in this elected body and staff is trying to build a community that people can be proud of and people clamor for to want to move here. So please continue to do what you're doing because it's working. Mount just one of the finest cities on the face of the planet, in my opinion. And most importantly, too, with especially coming to the holidays, is a lot of individuals like the folks you see sitting in this room tonight spend their life savings to open up businesses. We have a little boutique here beside us, and the paper mill and businesses like that where mom and pop businesses open up in our community, and they can't survive without us supporting them. So I want to continue to press that to please shop local. Christmas and holidays coming up. Not only does it benefit us, of course, as a city, so we can operate the city through the police and fire and emergency services. It makes our finance director happy, but also that it supports these business owners so that they can make a living and provide these services to our community. So thank them, the moms and dad businesses that open up our community, because that's what made Mount Juliet strong when it was incorporated in 1972 and even when it was founded in 1835. So thank you all for what you do to make Mount Juliet such an awesome place. And Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Our next item on our agenda is our unfinished business consent agenda. We have 3 items. I will read those on for the record. It is item 8.1, an ordinance to amend fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance 2022-31 to accept insurance proceeds and to appropriate the funds for repair of traffic signal. 8.2, an ordinance to amend ordinance 2013-23 to designate officials authorized to sign checks and withdraw funds from a confidential drug fund account. And 8.3, an ordinance to amend fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance 2022-32 to accept and appropriate additional grant funds for the Hamilton-Denson Park project. Have a motion and a second. The 3 items are on the table. We ready to vote? All in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda carries. Our next item is 9.1, an ordinance to reestablish a Mount Juliet Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, otherwise known as BPAC. Have a motion and a second. The item is on the table. Vice Mayor Justice.
When we left off the other night, I think we got to a point where we were kind of bouncing off of each other rather than getting anything accomplished. So what I had done is I come up with an amendment on packet page 27, where it says the BPAC is comprised of 9 voting members who all reside within the city limits of Mount Juliet. Supporting non-voting members can reside or own a business in Wilson County. There was some issue taken with non-Wilson or non-Mount Juliet folks being on there or being voting members. So what I would like to do is, with these committees, I found that participation is key to getting something accomplished. So what I would like to do is to increase the number of voting members from 9 to 11. And then I would like to add that 2 of those 11 would be from the county, from Wilson County, outside the city limits of Mount Juliet, and be approved and appointed and or selected by you.
Okay. Oh, I have something. Did you pass that to the
Sure.
Vice Mayor? So I have something kind of written up very similar, and I think we could incorporate that in there pretty easily.
Okay.
If you would grant me just a moment to explain this.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
All right. What I've got here as a proposal is just to remove that entire whereas, and I tried to sum it up based on what we had. And really it is to remove the now therefore be ordained and replace the language in your ordinance to totally take away that third whereas that's in the original 2013-75 ordinance, and add our points in there under therefore be it ordained. And I listed them out. I think I captured about everything that everybody had on here, and which is the BPAC shall not consider grants greater than, that shall not consider any grants, or shall only consider grants greater than $749,999.99 or $750,000 and above. The mayor shall appoint 4 members, 1 from each district. Each district shall nominate 1 member. 1 member of the Board of Commissioners will be appointed to the BPAC as the chairman. The commissioner appointed as BPAC may choose, if they choose to not serve as chairman, to select amongst the members a new chairman. The Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners will confirm all members by majority vote. The voting members shall serve staggered terms, with their terms expiring with the term of the elected officials, and all current members may serve until the replacement is appointed. And the last item, which is probably going to deviate from what yours was, these changes shall take effect December 1st, 2024. Any openings before then will be appointed by the commissioner whose district the vacancy occurs in. And the last item is the Board of Commissioner appointee will appoint any vacancy outside of the city limits to the BPAC. And with that, that's what I've written up here in it. And I know you're looking at trying to expand that as well. I'd be happy if you feel there's any synergies here between these, if we can discuss them together.
I don't think this is actually a really good summary of what we talked about the last time we were here and put together. So good job. Thank you. The only thing I would ask is that we do expand it to 11 rather than the 9, so that we have two opportunities for the county people to come on board. And
and I didn't include the language that they would need to be included inside the city. But it did require 1 member from the board, which is in city limits, and the 4 appointed by the mayor would be from the districts, which would be in the city limits. And then it left the existing 4 up to the individual members. If they didn't find anybody, they could appoint somebody outside the city. They could appoint somebody from California. To me, that was kind of between them and their constituents, but it would have to be approved by this board as well. But if you want to expand it to 11, any thanks.
I saw a finger, but I don't know what that means. Not a bad finger.
A good finger, yes. Commissioner Mullally.
Well, I would object to that because it's hard enough to get enough people there so that we have a quorum. So if you increase that number, it's going to increase the quorum, and it's going to just extend the difficulties of being able to vote and approve our minutes and things like that. So I think that would end up hurting the process.
How about this as a suggestion? What if we added in the ordinance here, defined an actual set number for a quorum? If it's 11, I mean, a quorum would be 6.
I'm not sure that Robert's rules would allow that, would they? Mr. Marquetti?
Bylaws to provide a quorum to be a majority of those present.
So we could say a majority of those present.
Which
and
requires
that would-
6.
Okay.
If it was 11-member board. It's 6 out of 11, an obstacle too high.
Well, then
What I'm saying,
that throws up a whole different
if 7
problem.
shows up, then 4 is
Right.
a majority. Yeah. So the quorum would be a majority of those present.
That was the timer for me concluding my comments.
Mhm.
So I guess I did good. And City Attorney, if I understand it, you're just saying how if we had 4 people show up, as long as 3 were in it, that would be acceptable. We're just voting on the approval of grants and stuff or what they want.
Correct, unless you set a minimum that needs to be there. If you want to say at least 7 members have to be there to create a quorum, then you can do that. But ordinarily, it's a majority. It's a majority of those present to vote with a certain minimum. In this case, 5 or 7 have to be present before you have a quorum to vote.
5, I'm not following the 5 or 7.
Usually it's a quorum is those present,
A percentage of those
Right.
present.
right? And if you want to set a minimum number that have to be there for a quorum, then you can set that, say it has to be at least 7 members before quorum is created.
Is there a problem
So you
with?
can't have 2 out of 3, 2 people voting on the whole thing.
Okay. Because up here we have our quorum defined as 3,
Mhm.
which is the majority of the members.
So in
So-
this case, if it was 11, then it needs to be, 6 then, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
If there were less than that, that would be an issue anyway, that you probably need to be looking for some new
Somewhere.
members if they weren't willing to. If you had 5 people that were consistently not willing to be there to vote.
Well, we had, with 9 voting members, the quorum is what, 5 or
5.
6? I can't remember. We had it last time. We had enough.
Yeah. I mean, if you got 9 members, the quorum's going to be 5. And if you have 11 members, it's 6, but you've got 2 additional bodies, maybe if you split those 50-50, you're going to be there.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, that would be my amendment.
Well,
So,
You-
but as far as what I would do would be to add it to yours.
how about we do this? I'll offer this up as an amendment.
And I'll second
Second. And then if you want to amend this amendment, well, let's just vote on
That's
this
fine.
first before
Yeah,
we
let's
do
don't
what
get
we
this
did
going.
last time. All in favor of the amendments submitted here at the table, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this amendment carries, and I'll recognize you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, what I would like to do is to increase the number of voting members. I think that's the key, is it not? The voting members. So increase the number of voting members from 9 to 11.
Okay.
With 9 being from inside the city limits and 2 being appointed by the mayor outside of the city limits.
Okay, so on the second bullet point, would it be appropriate to say the mayor shall nominate 4 members with each coming from one district in the city, or one of the 4 city districts, and 2 from, you just said outside the city, or?
Outside of the city limits in close proximity to the city. However, we need to word that so it's legal.
Commissioner Hefner.
Rather than open it up to the whole county, could you tie it to the urban growth boundaries, which to me makes a little bit more sense if you got somebody that's in our UGB.
With the two county members selected, living within the urban growth boundary.
All right, so I've added to the second bullet point, the mayor shall appoint 2 additional members from the urban growth boundary.
Mhm.
Is that appropriate? Okay. All right, I'll second that. That amendment to the amendment we just adopted is on the table. Commissioner Mullally?
All right, if you do that, you're going to eliminate one of our voting members that has a passion and who moved to Mount Juliet specifically because we had a BPAC. He lives in Lebanon. He's in the county, but not in the growth boundary. So he would be, and my point of it is this committee consists of just passionate people who have the same vision as BPAC. So that definitely would be one person that would be eliminated and not have the opportunity to continue serving.
Anything else, Commissioner Mullally? I'll recognize Commissioner Hefner.
So Mayor, we're talking about voting members.
Correct.
Not removing them from the committee.
Mhm.
So they could still participate in BPAC. They're just not voting on issues that fall within our UGB or within the city. Correct?
Correct. They can still be members of BPAC. That is open.
And to clarify, he's a voting member.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know the expansion to add 2 more members, but comparing that to the current, what you're proposing, Mayor, as far as allowing the commissioners to select some, if they can't find anyone, to select someone from the urban growth boundary. I'm just trying to compare the two to what you.
No. Well, my proposal, we've accepted to amend the current ordinance with. Right now, we're on the mayor adding 2 additional members from the urban growth boundary.
Yeah.
And take an opportunity to rework that makes sense.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just comparing it to what we've already voted on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with the other 2 members, where we said with the other 2 members being inside the urban growth boundaries, I'd change that to with at least one of those being from within the urban growth boundary.
Okay. And I think I seconded.
Yes, sir.
All right, and I'll accept that.
All right. I have a hearing problem. Can you repeat that?
Yes, ma'am. It's, I'm just saying that rather than saying that those 2 members would be within the urban growth or come from within the urban growth boundaries, it's just saying that one of those, at least one would be from within the urban growth boundary.
Oh, okay.
And I'll tell you, if we had an opportunity for somebody to serve on that committee that was maybe from the GNRC or some outside agency that, was in Nashville, that would also give us an opportunity to recruit somebody at that location, maybe after your person is no longer serving in that capacity, or move to a different location, or maybe move to Mount Juliet, but gives us some other opportunities.
Our Jeff Bezos wants to spend his walking around money.
There you go. So, pay to cash.
Hey, but in a greenway with it.
Put a rocket ship there.
Our Public Works Director has approached the podium, which
Y'all-
leads me to believe he may have a comment.
Well, y'all finish this amendment first. Mine will be on the grant amount, so.
All right, amendment on the table is the mayor to appoint 2 additional members, 1 coming from the urban growth boundary.
At least one.
At least 1.
And what do we decide about the quorum?
Quorum be 6.
6.
6 are we setting a minimum then for 6?
I believe our attorney was advising us that we needed to be at least 6 if we have 11 members.
I mean, of course, up to the commissioners, but I would think if you have 11 people, having 6 of them show up to do business makes sense.
All right, so that would be if you have all 11 there. What if some of the seats haven't been filled yet? Would that still apply?
It would. It's a number of the members of the board. So if only 9 members have been appointed, then 6 would still have to be there to have a quorum.
Are we ready to vote on the amendment?
Yes, sir.
All in favor of amending the amended ordinance to read the mayor shall, the second bullet point, mayor shall appoint 2 additional members with at least 1 from the urban growth boundary. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I think I do.
We got 4-1. Good. All right. Without objection, I'll recognize our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things I wanted to note on the grants, I think to your point about somebody spending walking around money, it would be my recommendation that we have the grants no less than $749,999. I would recommend to revise that to state or federal grants no less than, because it's the state and federal grants that really tie up a lot of the process. If we wanted to receive a grant from a nonprofit, something like that to go for a project, that could come through the BPAC or Friends of BPAC, and I don't want to be constrained that we might have to turn away free money.
In your scenario, you're talking about a grant that was just a donation, no strings
Exactly.
attached.
Right.
Go build something with it.
Basically, I give you a grant for this sidewalk on this road. That would be the only string.
Sounds like good wisdom to me. Vice Mayor?
The way yours is read, the BPAC shall only consider grants greater than $749,999,000. So if there is a grant with no strings attached or something that is, that the Public Works Director or somebody feels like is an okay project, then he can bring that directly to us without going through the BPAC, can you not?
I don't see why not. And he disappeared.
Okay. No, he's right there behind Michael Mullins.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We were talking about you.
Yes, you. The Vice Mayor had a question. If it is less than the stated amount in this amendment, you would still have the option of bringing the grant directly before the Board of Commissioners?
Yes, although I would say the BPAC sometimes does have the option of going through applying for grants in many different ways. There may be TDEC grants or some other things. So like trail grants and things like that, that some of those only have maybe $100,000 or $50,000 or $250,000. They're pretty quick grants.
I'm sorry.
I was going to suggest amending it to read the BPAC shall only consider state and federal grants greater
Okay, that works.
than $749,999.99.
I want to make sure we avoid some of the, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's good.
So I want to make sure that we avoid some of the snafus that we've had in the past dealing with state grants and federal grants where we've wound up with projects that cost us more because the federal government was involved in it than it would have if we'd done it
Absolutely.
without the federal government.
And that's
being involved.
I think that's my point too. It is the federal transportation process for that takes forever, but some of these other grants through other agencies might not take that long.
Right. Well, for instance, Lebanon Road from the old Kangaroo to Vendors Ferry Road is a prime example of getting the federal government involved and screwing something completely up. So,
And I had a second on that from Commissioner Hefner. Any other questions? Commissioner Milady?
Well, I don't have a question. I just want to point out that during the BPAC meetings, we have a rep from Public Works that comes and talks to us about grants that become available.
Mhm.
So, we also have the opportunity to discuss it there as well before it moves on any further.
Do you see any problem with the state and federal grants? Okay. All in favor of amending the first bullet point to read the BPAC shall only consider state and federal grants greater than $749,999.99, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The third amendment is on the books. Any other questions or comments on this? All right. All in favor of the ordinance as 3 times amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ordinance is adopted on first reading. I almost said adopted. I got a little ahead of myself. We deferred it on first reading, so we have adopted on first reading, and I guess that will be back at the what would normally be the second meeting, because the first meeting will be held on Columbus Day, which the city offices will be closed that day. And with that, we will move to new business, unless you weren't trying to get my attention. Okay, we will move to new business. I thought I'd missed something, which I'm often prone to do. So we'll move to new business, which the first item on here, we will read 11A1 and 11A2 together. 11A1 is an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet approximately 160.69 acres at 771 Bender's Ferry Road, map 49, parcel 69, 69.02, 69.03, and 69.09, and located within the city's urban growth boundary. 11A2, an ordinance to rezone approximately 160.96 acres of property at 771 Bender's Ferry Road, being map 49, parcel 69, 69.02, 69.03, 60, and 69.09 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee, from Wilson County R1 to single-family residential RS20 plan unit development, RS20 PUD, and adopt the preliminary master development plan for the Bender's Ferry PUD. I have a motion and a second. The two items, 11A1, the annexation, and 11A2, the PUD, are both on the table here. Vice Mayor, did you have
Make a
something?
motion to separate.
A motion to separate? Is there a second on the motion?
Be considered separately, the annexation versus the PUD.
Is there a motion to for the separation, or second for the separation?
I'll second it. I want to know.
All right. And our city attorney is looking a little confused. Yes, sir.
They won't move forward with annexation without the approval on the PUD, so separating them's really not going to do anything.
Commissioner Mullally?
There's going to be considerable debate about this tonight. I don't want to debate the annexation process. I believe that annexation process is going to, be no problem. I don't believe that we're going to have a problem getting it through tonight, but I don't want one based on the other. I don't want them, in other words, the annexation and the actual PUD project to be tied to one another.
Commissioner Trevette?
Mayor, after hearing this, I'd like to pull my second, just because I know that this board, along with everyone else, has worked really hard on this, and I just don't want any confusion tonight, on my end at least.
Okay. Is anyone else willing to second that? All right, then we will proceed then with the two items considered in tandem. All right, Commissioner Mullally.
I just wanted to address a couple of the concerns about the minimum lot size. Our planning and zoning director answered this question. I sent the concerns and got Andy and Jennifer to answer those. So in case you aren't aware, her response was, and if she wanted to come up and explain, okay, all right, her response, and this had to do with the first concern, which about the minimum lot sizes and the lot coverage under the RS20. So her reply was, for a PUD, a PUD, the RS20 base zoning is used to calculate density rather than actual lot sizes, setbacks, and so on. For instance, in a setting where there is no PUD overlay presented, the subdivision would follow the guidelines, but would not require amenities and open space like you see in a typical PUD. So she addressed that. And then, let's see. One under number 2 concern is, why is this development not being held to these requirements? Her response was, this development was submitted before the 10,000 square foot requirement and was adopted. Although it is the reason for the change. Number 2, are all future developments going to be held to this standard? If so, please provide examples. Yes, all future residential developments will be required to have a minimum 10,000 square foot lot size. And on the one about the road, what are the developers contributing to ease the increase in traffic congestion at the Lebanon Road and Bender's Ferry intersection? So this is Director of Public Works, Andy's response. The development proposal is going to be widening Bender's Ferry from their project frontage down to Lebanon Road to a full three-lane section. At Lebanon Road, they will also be adding a right turn lane. More than just adding lanes, they will be increasing the storage on Bender's Ferry to increase the capacity of that movement. The ultimate widening of Lebanon Road by TDOT will be addressing the larger concern of capacity on Lebanon Road. So I wanted you to know about those responses. That's all.
All right. Commissioner Trevette?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Mullally, also, just for the folks out in the audience, that widening will happen first before the project is kicked off. So that should help to show some relief there. Just obviously that was one thing, as well as there was also some discussion about the firehouse and also the safety. And I actually got an opportunity to actually meet up with the deputy chief this week, and it looks like that's on track for at least January 1st. So we look to be in good shape there as well. So there's a lot of discussion when it comes to the fire life safety, and obviously that's some support there as well. So I just wanted to highlight those two. Thank you for bringing those.
All right. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hefner?
Yeah, I'll speak a little bit on this. Well, where we started and where we're at tonight is significant. This, as Vice Mayor mentioned earlier, this originally came in as a county project, and it failed, and then subsequently a lawsuit was filed. My main concern was public safety, and one of the resolves to addressing that was annexation and a request for city services, which they've done. Ultimately, they're responsible for much needed road improvements. By Andy Barlow's estimates is well over $2 million, all of which are going to be done before, not the project starts, but before the first CO is issued, which is a big difference. So before anybody moves in to a home there, these road improvements will be done and completed. Blasting restrictions were added, reducing the blasting from what is now a state maximum of 2 inches per second. We've successfully got that reduced in half, 1 inch per second, in addition to certified letters at 500 feet. So a lot of really, really good things, positive things that are beneficial to the area residents there that we're going to get benefit from. Had this gone through the county, none of that we would have the ability to hold them to. So in my opinion, there's a high probability based on our attorney that this project was going to fail with the courts. And it's a situation where you lose the battle and you also lose the war. So in this instance, we're getting um, much needed road improvements to Bender's Ferry. We're getting blasting and protection for the citizens that live around that area. And it's overall, as Vice Mayor mentioned, I don't think either party's walking away feeling good about this. But it is what it is at this point. As far as the access to York Road, emergency services will have the ability via some sort of a crash gate of sort. We'll be able to get access to that project off of York Road. So again, public safety issue came down to for me. And if God forbid something to happen, another flood, and we needed access to the back, that we have the ability to do that. So a lot of things ultimately ended up in this. Ultimately is what I feel is a good project for now for the city. So,
And I'll tag on to that. This is a situation where, I mean, for me as elected official, I feel in some sense that we don't have the control or authority that I feel we should have over some of these projects on this, because I think, if I'm not to put words in your mouth, but if this doesn't get approved by the city of Mount Juliet now, then they're free to go through the county and get it approved, and perhaps with more houses, but absolutely no road improvements on this. So, I mean, I feel like I'm backed in the corner here. Either approve this with the road improvements or let it go another way with no improvements at all on it. And I mean, does anybody see it any differently than that? That's just kind of where the position we're at. And, you know, as far as decision makers up here, it really feels handicapped at times like this when it's, like I said earlier, not a project I was solicited for this location based on what's going on with the traffic counts. And we know that there's TDOT projects out there for road improvements. We know all those things are in place, and there's a lot of things that, you know, if I had total control over the situation we would change the timing of them perhaps. But there is one thing I would like to see added to this, and that is a noise easement for each of the deeds that are issued for city services based on the services that are offered by the city, based on existing city services occurring near that. I'm just getting a strange look from our city attorney, so I'll just call upon you.
If you could explain what you mean by noise easement.
There is a police firing range that abuts this property, and I would like a noise easement attached to the deeds.
Meaning that
they would acknowledge that
they can continue to operate there. They accept it as it is, and
yeah,
of course check with one of the representatives, but I don't think that would present a problem. They know it's there.
Yeah, seeing no objection. What I'm asking for is just to accept it on the deed that there is an existing firing range that abuts some of those properties very closely. And that's going to be my motion, that be added. If there's a second, I have a second from Commissioner Trevette. City Manager.
Mayor, I appreciate you adding that. I think that makes sense. We've had a police firing range on York Road for years for the police department, plus our public works facility there. So basically it educates any future homeowners through the developer that those houses back up to the range. So there sort of like train tracks, you build next to a train, you may hear some train noise. So that's where the police department trains, you know. So we do get that. I can tell you that through the city we'll get that. So I think that's a great addition. Thank you.
Depending on where they're moving from, they may not.
Yeah, a lot of times that's not divulged by not intentionally, but sometimes it just get passed on to the homeowners if there's something nearby.
Yeah, and there's no one practicing at the firing range at midnight either. So
yes, sir. We've been good neighbors there for a long time.
All right. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's 11A2 amended as part of the PUD. Any other questions and comments before we vote? Vice Mayor?
Okay, we talked in our past conversation about a fence. And there was to be some notes made on the plans, and I'm not seeing that anywhere, sir. And I probably missed it, but I do want to make sure it's captured. The fence around the Walcott property, along with the buffer. And Ms. Hamlin was going to put that is it in there? Where's it located, Sam? Mayor, I'm sorry.
That's provide a Class C buffer around the entire perimeter of the development for the perimeter of, it names the property owners, provide a 20 feet do not disturb buffer, line retention and mature tree line split, and provide a split rail fence along the interior of the buffer. So yeah, it's captured under 18 under planning's comments.
So we did leave it in there for the Brenda Moss property also to be.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And that's provided by the developer, not the taxpayers, to clarify. I think that was one of the comments that come up tonight.
I'm sorry?
I think somebody had a comment about the taxpayers funding a fence.
Yeah, actually the developer funded fence. We got it in that the HOA will take over preservation, maintenance of the fence once it's been taken over by the HOA. Okay, Mayor.
And you were asking about the HOA. Is that, I'm seeing head nods that it's captured, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. One comment, if I may, I'll try and be as brief as I can. This is in my district, and as the mayor said, it lays between the county and the city. Our job as city commissioners, number one job is to provide safety for the people in the city of Mount Juliet. That means to make sure that fire and the police are taken care of, and there's enough of them to take care of what needs to be taken care of when it happens. We've got a fire and a police department and a fire department that is probably second to none that I know of. That's the number one responsibility we have. We want to do that in a way that the taxpayers are not borne the burden of the growth, when the growth should be put on the people providing the growth, and that's the people moving in here. And that is put in by the developers. We have seen more and more times when developers come from outside of our city, most times from Franklin, Brentwood, and some of those places, and they come in here and they rape and pillage, and then they take in their toys and run home and leave us with the bill. I've already seen it. And if you go over in Providence, you'll see a lot more of it, a bunch of it. So when we passed a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size ordinance with a 15,000 average, we did that to try and preserve something that we had in our city, especially in the north end of our city. We are not in the north like they are over here in Providence. And this ain't Providence, Tennessee, and there is no special zip code for the folks over in Providence. It's Mount Juliet, but we are separated. Best description I heard was that when people cross the interstate coming from the south end of our city to the north end of our city, they were able to breathe. That pressure was gone all of a sudden because we've got something that they don't have over there, and we've got some wide open spaces. Now, I'd like to preserve some of those wide open spaces. So I hope, because of the overlapping of the passing of the ordinance and the 10,000 and 15,000 average, we're able to see that these folks are going to get their way to a large degree, and we're getting ours to a large degree. Like I said, it's bad for both. We don't, any of us like it. I hope this sends a message out to the other developers. And Mr. White, you're in the audience tonight. I hold you in very high esteem, one of the finest attorneys in Nashville. I hope that nobody else hires you to come in to represent them against the city of Mount Juliet from this point forward, because they are getting a message that we don't want little pillboxes in Mount Juliet. We don't want little tiny homes in Mount Juliet. We don't want little tiny lots in Mount Juliet. North Mount Juliet is not the place where you want to come if you want to bring your crap over here. Bring quality development, and we'll talk about it. but we're sick and tired of seeing what we've got up in the south end of town. Don't want it on this side of the interstate. I hope that's been made clear.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Mullally.
Well, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. One thing that Commissioner Hefner made sure of on the Planning Commission is that a 10% rental cap was put on the development. So those of you concerned about rentals, I know I am, that would be a 10% rental cap over the entire development. And we also added the language that no one homeowner can own more than two. So that, would help keep that under control. And also the emergency gate. They did approve for an emergency gate to go at York Road. That would not be an access point. And so I just wanted to confirm with our PD that would, in our fire, that would only be by lock and key. That would not be something that car remotes could work and, open the gate. So that would be only by lock and key for emergency services only. Because I had one resident reach out to me with that concern.
Madam Commissioner, we would rather not be a lock or a key lock, as most of my people wouldn't want to drive to wherever that key would be located to obtain it. Most places, such as Del Webb, have whelp locks on their gate where we can show up, whether it's us, fire, or EMS, show up, activate our siren, and it activates the system.
Okay, because one concern was some remotes are opening that one in Del Webb from their car.
I'm not aware of that. It's whatever the body of the commission does, but it's going to be difficult for any emergency service, if it's a true emergency, to drive wherever the key to this gate is going to be, unless you're going to issue 78 to my department, another how many to EMS and to fire. At that point in time, you're putting that many keys out there. I don't know how secure that's going to be anyway, versus the whelping mechanism on it that allows emergency services of any type to get in.
Okay, because I was told that they, I forgot who it was I talked to, said they weren't aware of any emergency access gate in the city that was not lock and key.
Del Webb is not a lock and key.
But is that an actual emergency gate? I mean, is that classified as an emergency gate?
I mean, it's emergency access.
So, or is that more primarily for residents?
Well, I mean, it's a residential gate, but the mechanism that allows us to get in is an emergency access.
Okay, because, well, just so you know, some remotes are setting that off in their cars.
I can't control that. I mean, that's just where we are. I mean, if the will of commission is to put a Knox box out there, that's one thing, but then you got to have a key to that Knox box.
So how many emergency that you would describe as an emergency gate in the city limits that we have currently?
Well, I mean, a lot of the other gates in the city have key codes to them that when we're able to pull up, we're able to enter a key code as well, a punch number system versus an actual key.
Would that be?
Willow Creek, Stonegate, most of the apartment complexes have a system such as that, or the whelping system on their gates. Andy?
I just wanted to add another note that
Vice Mayor Justice.
I think we can settle this pretty quick. The whelping system he's talking about is when you walk up and they hit the siren, and the siren generally is 3 to 6 seconds, I think. I've never liked those, but there is actually no better way of doing it. And can we get an agreement from thinking that is the system that would be installed by the developer?
within it.
So, I mean, that pretty much settles that. There's no way they can get that many keys out. There's no other secure way of doing this. And the whelp system, you walk up, you pull up, you hit the whelp, the gate opens. So it's only going to be accessed by somebody with a siren anyway. No other way of getting through it.
Our our Director of Public Works, Mr. Barlow.
Well, I think one thing, so there's an EMS aspect of it too, but when you consider that our public works property that we utilize, which is adjacent to the driving range, is literally right next door to this. If we're in this neighborhood, not this, right as soon as it opens, but eventually we're going to be picking up brush, not only here, but other areas are going to develop in and around Bender's Ferry. I don't necessarily want our guys having to drive all the way down to Lebanon Road, over to York Road, and then back all the way up and taking that extra distance over there. So you got to consider brush pickup, any other dead animal pickup, any other activities that we do that go back and forth between the properties. We need to make sure that we have ease of access there too. So if you're talking keys, that's another 40 employees that we have. That's another 40 keys, the whole like, which of course, my basic recommendation is no gate. So there you go. Throw that out there.
Yeah.
There is another system other than the whelping system. It works essentially off the squelch off our radio system, where we click on the squelch on our radio system and it activates the gate as well. So essentially the same system, different mechanism to activate it.
The same radios Public Works carries.
Yes.
That were you
Set at a certain level? Is that what it activates it? I mean, is it just squelched through the PA?
None of our gates in the city operate off the siren system. That was an old system that was phased out. All the gates inside the city that are electronic all operate off of click to enter. That is the name of the vendor that is used, and it operates off our frequency. So the vendor for click to enter goes out to each gate and ensures that our radio frequency is in there. So it's an 800 megahertz frequency. We don't give it out because we don't want people to use other type systems to open the gates. But we just click our radios.
Is our public works also working under 800 megahertz?
They do. They're on our same system.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that a whole lot better than the Yelp system. It never made sense. There are certain places that I had to go in the county in a patrol car and you had to turn your siren on to get the gate. And of course, that means that the guy burglarizing the place also knows you're there. So
sure. Absolutely.
I never liked that.
But it's all moved to click to enter. We've been using it probably 6 to 8 years now.
Are we talking about, is there a cost associated with this that we are aware of, or is that something we're just going to ask the developer if they're?
I think you need to ask the developer. We've never paid for it as a city or as a police department. I guess we've always assumed that was part of the stipulation, is to have click to enter on all these electronic gates, because it is on every electronic gate. There is that system.
Okay. This is
and it may be
this is first reading, correct?
This is first reading.
It could be a building code.
I'm sorry?
It could be a building code. I'm not sure.
I don't think it's not an existing building code. I don't think.
Yeah.
It might be, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I would like to go ahead and put that in, if we could, just note that in the minutes. If developers are okay with it, then we'll have probably some additional information by the second meeting.
Y'all want to take this up on second reading? And I see head nods from the applicants.
They're saying they're okay with it. So
I think they're saying that's the least of their concerns.
Yeah. There's some other things I want to get some information from Andy Barlow, if I may, Director Barlow.
Can I ask you to yield just a minute? Is there anybody else with questions? All right, Vice Mayor.
Okay.
You have the
Mr.
floor.
Barlow?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay. In my conversation with the Planning Commission, when we started this, I had asked for there to be 3 lanes with a right-hand turn lane, of course, and a right-hand turn onto. So there'd be 2 left-hand turn lanes, actually. And I'm assuming, since the state of Tennessee and the federal government are going to be forever getting that done, we would probably have to escrow the money at that point just have it set aside, or how would that be handled?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about a per lot type of contribution on this project, if you weigh the options of a per lot contribution versus a project in lieu, yeah, you'd have to take the money and escrow it basically for each lot as it comes through. Is that what you were referring to?
Well, I'm talking about that and I'm talking about the project itself. We're talking about at some point, how far off of Lebanon Road are we coming up Bender's Ferry for the fourth lane, the right-hand turn lane off of?
So it's not defined the length of it, but it'd probably be, we would take a look at that with the final master development plan. I'd want to take a look at the traffic numbers on it, but probably 100-foot turn lane is kind of what I'm thinking for that right turn lane plus bay taper. So
I don't want to wait until the FNDP before we do that.
I mean, we can set it at 100 feet right now if you want to.
I'm sorry.
100 feet, right turn lane.
Do you feel like it's enough?
Well, I'd have to go back and double check some numbers, but it's a start.
Why don't, it's just a suggestion that you come back with the numbers on second reading?
Second reading. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah. No, I mean, so to your point, it's a 3-lane section all the way from Lebanon Road to the northern boundary of their project.
Right. 3
So,
lanes.
yeah,
And the fourth lane is actually a right-hand turn lane is what we're
Correct.
talking about, correct?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, you think about it, at a left turn lane, you could store, just like Nottawell Road, you can stack up in that center turn lane for as long as you want to.
Okay. And there will be no certificates of occupancy granted until the road improvements to Bender's Ferry are made, correct?
That's correct. We did capture that wording in the ordinance.
That is what we have here, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. Okay. There'll be some other discussion in second reading, but I'm
Sounds good.
comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Are any other questions, comments before we vote for first reading? All right, all in favor of the ordinance all in favor of 11A1 as published, and all in favor of 11A2 as once amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, these carry on first reading. I believe this will be back for consideration on 10/24. Yeah, so be back for consideration on second reading at 10/24. All right, did you have anything?
Ask for a break, but didn't know how that's going to work.
I motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
All right, second. All in favor of recess for 5 minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? We will re-adjourn at 3 after 8. All right. The time is 8:03. We will come back into session and hopefully complete the rest of our agenda here. Our next item on that agenda is 11A3, an ordinance to amend the land use plan for the property located at 191 Second Avenue South, map 73L, Group B, parcel 18, from Town Center and Parks and Greenway to medium density residential. Have a motion. Is there a second on this? I'll second this one. It's on the table. I think we do need to make one correction on this land use to, is that correct? I'm just going to call you up here, our planning director.
Thank you, sir. I did not catch this at Planning Commission, but it should be low density, not medium density. That would support that RS30 zoning classification that they're requesting.
Okay.
So instead of medium density, low density.
I'll make a motion to change medium density to low density. Have a second on that. Any other questions or comments on 11A3? We have our planning director here if they are.
And this is a family.
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I'm going to have to abstain from this. There's a conflict here that I didn't realize, but so I'm not going to be able to vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
So.
All right, any other questions or comments? All in favor of 11A3, please signify by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry, we did not vote on the, all in favor of, and see, folks, this is what I was talking about earlier when she puts the finger up like that. We have not voted on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment to change this from medium density to low density, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We got one opposed to changing it from medium to low. And we got one abstained. And what was your vote?
Aye. My apologies.
Yes. Were you voting to not change it from medium? Okay. So you wanted to leave it at medium. Okay. So we had 3 in favor of changing it to low, 1 in opposition, and 1 abstention. That's what, all right. All right, we're back on the ordinance as once amended. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the ordinance as once amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we had carries with 4 in favor and 1 abstention on 11A3. 11A4, an ordinance to amend to rezone the property located at 191 Second Avenue South, map 73L, Group B, parcel 18, from residential single-family RS40 to residential single-family RS30. Have a motion?
Second.
And a second. The item's on the floor. Any questions or comments on this? All in favor of 11A4, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. That passes with 4 in favor with 1 abstention. 11A5, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet approximately 0.7 acres property known as the Kennedy property at 1367 South Rutland Road, map 96, parcel 13.09, and located within the city's urban growth boundary. Have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on this one? All in favor of 11A5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That one carries. (11A6), an ordinance to rezone the property known as the Kennedy property located at 1367 South Rutland Road, map 96, parcel 13.09, from single-family residential RS20 to single-family residential RS30. Have a motion?
Second.
Second. The item's on the table. Any questions or comments? All in favor of 11A through A6, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 11A6 carries. 11A7, an ordinance for a major amendment to the preliminary master development plan for the Tomlinson Point Plan Unit Development being located at 2844 Curd Road, map 54, parcel 73, 81, and 82.02 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee. Have a motion and a second. 11A7 is on the table. Any questions or comments on this one? Vice Mayor?
This is in my district and is the development that is working with the city for the parks.
Mhm.
One of the conversations that I had with the folks involved in this development was we were talking about, and it was Toll Brothers representative. I don't know if they're here tonight or not. They're in the back. Never been a big fan of 100% brick and stone. And so one of the things that I have found, you go through the Jackson Hills development over there, is how beautiful that whole residential section is with the mixture between the rock, the brick, and then you've also got the hardy siding, which is one out of every 5, I believe it is, homes, or 1 out of every 6. I'm not sure exactly the. Do you know?
I'm not sure the mix, but
it's the way it's set up is gorgeous. I'm sorry. And I had talked to gentleman with Toll Brothers about the possibility of doing something along those lines, and I didn't know if he'd come up with anything for this meeting as to whether that would be something that we could do an amendment here, or how that would work. So if we've got maybe we get some guidance here from Ms.
if
Hamblin.
we have representation, our planning director.
Just to clarify, that is actually why they're bringing this PUD amendment before you tonight, is to set that baseline and the expectation of something similar to the Jackson Hills development.
Right. So have we got that set? That was whether it be 1 out of every 6, every 10,
So
every
it'll be
4?
109 homes will be 100% brick or stone, and then 109 homes will have a minimum of 50% of the secondary material, which is we felt like a good mix, and to break up some of that monotony of a whole brick subdivision. I'm sorry, 25 to 50%
Okay.
of secondary material. Sorry, I just looked down and saw the 50.
So, and we're talking about the line from the bottom being the brick or rock.
Mm-hmm.
which
They
I
expanded
prefer.
a water table to give you some reference. I have plans here, and you had plans in your box if everybody got those.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
Mine's right here.
Vice Mayor, I'll add to that. Some of the drawings I did see in the plans here that were 100% brick. I mean, it's just brick.
Right.
It's just brick.
When you've got, and my theory all along has been, if you're going to do 100% brick, I mean, you're just going to wind up with a bunch of mausoleums, is what it looks like in these subdivisions. And the Jackson Hills development wound up being just exactly the opposite. A gorgeous development as a result of what they were able to do. So I would like to see more of that. It's one of the reasons I voted against the 100% brick stone.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a good compromise. So they worked really hard with our planning commission and staff, and I appreciate them for being willing to be open to it.
Oh yeah, I'm with the vice mayor on this as well, because Jackson Hills was not, when I was commissioner, was not in my district. I didn't go to Jackson Hills that often, just to visit, quick in and out. Through a series of ride-alongs with the police department, we wound up spending some considerable time on a certain call or two inside that neighborhood. And you really got to looking around at the beauty, the diversity of products that's in Jackson Hills. And it really just struck a chord with me that, it was unfortunate that our current code was going to prohibit anything like that being constructed without considerable variances on that. And that's my 2 cents on it. I watched the planning commission tape, and I know the feedback you got there, but that's my feedback on this and what's going forward. And I think Commissioner Hefner's got something to add as well.
I just want to mention about the material. It's actually, this material that's being proposed is actually costs more than brick. So it's not and I had a great conversation with Toll Brothers, and I really appreciated that. Reached out to me a couple of days ago. So it's not an attempt on their part to put some inferior product or house on the property. So again, the material that they're using is costs more than actually hand laid brick. I would maybe suggest on the in lieu of the 100% brick on 50% of the homes, maybe doing a range of 75% to 100 instead of 100% brick.
One of the things that I have found through the processes that we've gone through is that there are times when a preliminary master development plan comes into this body and then it leaves after we vote on it. It goes to the planning commission, and by the time it gets to the final master development plan, it actually very, very slightly resembles anything that we saw at this level. This one already has been there. So, I mean, we're going to be at the mercy really of staff to determine what that's going to look like when it hits the FNDP. We're not going to know. We'll never know until they start building houses over there. So, I mean, I think what they've proposed is good. Let the staff run with it as it is and go along. I would like to see it revisited, by the way, at some point in time where the final master development plan is actually brought back before this body to make sure it actually looks like what we sent to the planning commission. That's putting a whole lot of pressure on Commissioner Hefner to sit up there and go through every single project. I don't think it's fair to you, to be perfectly honest with you. We wind up, too many developments have gone down that path, and they come back here and we're looking at it going, what in the world happened? I don't know what this even looks like. As far as the paper or the product, the hardy board siding product, tell you a really, really quick little story. Of course, most of you know I'm a police officer and retired. A guy that I arrested decided that he was going to throw a Molotov cocktail on the front of my house. And he did so with me and my 3 boys asleep inside of the house. And it caught on fire. Of course, had gasoline in it. It was actually the fact that I had hardy board siding on the front of my house that did not catch on fire that we survived that fire with minimal damage, I might add. So I'm a poster child for hardy board. I will stand up for it and will tell you that it does not degrade subdivisions. It does not degrade the value of homes, like I've heard many say. It actually provides something that we don't have, and that is a diversity of the product, as you said. And it will make a development as Jackson Hill's beautiful and look better than what, mausoleum syndrome that we currently have.
There you have it. Tried by fire.
There you go. Trial by fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest,
that was kind of quick, by the way. It was a good job.
Well, I would suggest if anybody has any suggestions or changes based on what's been presented here, you get with the planning director between now and second reading and still trying to work it out here at the table. And I think you're hearing from us that we're kind of in favor of a little diversity up here, but you got questions or comments? All in favor of 11A7 as presented, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? 11A7 carries. The next item is 11A8, an ordinance to amend Part B of the Unified Development Code of the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, known as the Zoning Regulation Ordinance 2001-29, adopted October 8th, 2001, as amended by modifying Article 6, Commercial District Regulations, Supplemental Design Provisions, Section 61041, Mixed Use Development Standards. Motion and a second. The item is on the table for discussion.
Words on this. So our current regulations require 10% minimum on commercial, which on a commercial mixed use, it's really not commercial mixed use or residential mixed use. So this is increasing the commercial to 25%, which, the idea, if you think about a commercial mixed use property, you want the walkability to commercial properties or the commercial retail, whatever that 25% is. With 10%, it's just the bare bones what we're seeing coming in here. So this is my attempt to kind of straighten that out and get that more in line with what I would expect on a commercial mixed use, which is 25%. And that's just starting point. I mean, this could change. We could see it go up. I don't see it going down. But at some point in the future, that may potentially go up. But I think 25% is a good starting point.
Yeah, I'll add to that. And our planning director said it perfectly at the planning commission, the way she worded it. I think instead of this being a mixed use, it's been a mixed excuse to get just the bare minimums of the commercial in here to try to get, in most cases, a way to get multifamily approved. And, you know, I was just less than a week ago sitting over at in the area where the Mitsubishi headquarters is coming in. And I just think we only have so much land, and we're really missing an opportunity to embrace a good product out here that you can have some real synergies between the commercial entities, the residential entities, where both of them are working in synergy to create something that's walkable to keep traffic off our roads, and to just create a development that's really just real sense of community into it, and not just more houses back behind some stores. And I think that's what we're seeing on this. And I really would encourage people to bring products forward where you do have that use, where you're seeing those synergies that are in there that are naturally complementing each other. And that's really my vision for what I want to see going forward for mixed use developments. Any other comments before we vote? Vice Mayor?
Okay, we have properties out here, and I'm looking in my district. There's a couple, actually. And one of them you and I have had a conversation about just briefly, and I agreed with you also, by the way. But I was talking to a guy, he had 30 some odd acres. And if 25% of that 30 acres, say it was 25 acres, just to give you an example. So if 25% of that came down and you wanted to put a CMU project in there, and Jennifer, Ms. Hamblin may want to get up there to the microphone because I'm sure this is going to come from you and him. The answer would be, but would they be able to do a commercial mixed use project with, say, a townhome development if it brought the residential portion of that below the 20 acres?
As long as the PUD boundary remains 20 acres.
I'm sorry?
As long as the PUD boundary remains 20 acres or more, then they would be okay.
So it's the overall PUD that is measured, not just the residential portion of the PUD, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The other part of that I want to make sure, and when we talk about commercial mixed use, you're talking about actually mixing the use. Is that not kind of where we're going with this?
Correct.
Rather than go, okay, we're going to put 2 commercial buildings on Lebanon Road, and then we'll put a bunch of stuff behind it.
Correct, which is what we've been seeing. It's just an excuse, as the mayor stated, to bring in an apartment complex or a multifamily high density development, and running it through as a CMU PUD rather than the 4-letter word that apartments have become in the city.
Okay. And I hope everybody understands, we were talking to the developers early, no apartments coming to the north end of town, okay? I'll lay down in front of the bulldozer. Just clarify that. Somebody wants to bring townhomes in. I see Kenny Powers about to fall out over here, but you know, I'm not getting into that side of town over there. But I mean, if they brought in a townhome project and it was a true mixed use, so how do we avoid getting the commercial in front?
Well, I think that becomes a part of the PUD approval at that point. I mean, we don't have to approve every single PUD that comes through here. You guys have the ability to say, I don't think this meets my expectation of a commercial mixed use PUD. You have the right to do that.
Well, what keeps us from getting brought into a court of law by another developer, as we just recently had happen, Mr. Marchetti? Because we have an opinion that is.
You have to have a reasonable basis for your decision. And your reasonable basis on mixed use is it's truly mixed use. It's not, as you said, a lot of stores over here and apartments in the back. It's
Okay.
mixed together.
And that protects us from being,
Oh, nothing protects you from being sued. You just need to have.
nothing protects us from
reasonable-
being.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear.
You just have to have a reasonable basis for your decision, so it's not, quote, arbitrary and capricious.
Yeah, I think you're asking for a justification for the decision on that. And that's going to be my justification. Because what we're seeing right now is we're seeing two different independent zonings put on one parcel, and they just call it, and really you could just draw a line down it if there were enough land and say commercial, residential, because there's nothing in it that's mixed. It's really side by side uses would be a better word of what we're seeing.
We've actually approved some of that just recently. I think it was in Commissioner Trevette's district too.
No.
But I'm like, oh, I'm tired of seeing that too. So I have no problem with this. I don't think it's going to. No.
All right, Commissioner Milady.
You mentioned that planning, this would be like the first in a series.
Yes, ma'am. I plan on, if you've noticed, in this ordinance, only addressing the commercial mixed use. I'm trying to do some research on surrounding communities and a CTC to try to promote some of that mixed traditional, like a real mixed use in our town center, to try to promote that town center vibe. We've had that in our ordinance as an overlay in previous administrations, and it's been since made optional, although it doesn't have that multifamily component in it. I think that we have a good opportunity in our downtown district to get that village style that I think that we're all looking for here in the middle of the city.
All right. All in favor of 11A8, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That one carries. Next item on the agenda is 11A9, which is an ordinance to amend the land use plan for a portion of the property known as Project Jolene, located along Golden Bear Gateway and Athletes Way, map 78, part of parcel 1017 from Business Development Center Impact Zone to Thoroughfare Commercial. Have a motion?
Second.
And a second. The item's on the table. Any questions or comments on this land use plan amendment? Commissioner Milady.
I just have one. According to the map, there's a section of land in between the two. And since it's called Project Jolene, just wondering why the two didn't connect together and why there's a piece of land in between.
We have someone with the answers.
Are you speaking of this piece?
Yeah.
That's their access road.
Okay. That was my only question.
All in favor of 11A9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 11A9 carries. 11A10, an ordinance of the city of Mount Juliet to amend the Mount Juliet City Codes, Chapter 4, Alcoholic Beverage, Sections 462-1, on-premise consumption beer permits, an issuance requirement to change required number of seats to 40, and the Section 462-1 and 3 to remove the references to permits issued prior to June 17, 2002. Have a motion and a second. The item's on the table. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Milady?
Well, I reached out to Kenny because he was the sponsor to ask the purpose of this. And would you like to explain your reasoning?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, over, I guess, a series of years doing the economic development for the city or working in economic development for the city, I noticed a lot of the smaller businesses, mom and pop type business, boutique type restaurants, for a lot of them are in Providence, and I can name them here today of some that have reached out to me over the years and saying, hey, we'd love to be able to sell craft beers or individual beers, no hard alcohol, anything like that. But unfortunately, the square footage that they're in just wouldn't allow them to do that. And a lot of our restaurants are starting to trend to smaller style restaurants with fewer seats, which you're going to probably see more of that in the future. Not the 200 and 150 seat restaurants are going to be smaller. So we did some research with other cities, and a lot of the cities had no restrictions whatsoever on seating. So I felt like that after meeting with some of the businesses that were looking to at least sell craft beers with their food, for example, the particular business that prompted this most recently was a New York pizzeria in the Providence Marketplace, which is right there by the one of the shopping centers right across from Salsaritas, which is another business, and Corey's Doghouse over the years. So that's what prompted it. Is basically it's just almost impossible for some of the businesses to get 95 seats in their restaurant. And what started happening over the years is some of the businesses were cheating it by being able to build a outside seating area. And so whether or not that's used in the winter or not, they could build an outside seating area, and whether or not it was utilized, that would count toward their seating. Well, not every business has an opportunity to build a patio or something of that nature. And so felt like it's a fair compromise and wanted to pitch that to the commission for consideration. And I think it's a good change. I really do. And I support it, and I hope that the commission does as well. But that's what prompted just a lot of requests from different businesses.
My only concern was that we could like get more bars, of course, but the 5-to-1 stays in place.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I had.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of, oh, sorry. Didn't see you there.
Question, how many entertainment licenses have been applied for?
That is a good question.
That percentage applies at the end of the year if they do not meet their 5-to-1. Is that correct?
It's a reason why they don't have to have 5-to-1 is that they're an entertainment facility.
Correct.
And the burden's on them to present facts that shows they are an entertainment facility. So they do it at their own risk, if you will.
Yeah, no, and the reason why I asked the question, I probably should have stated this beforehand, was I don't think we've had a swarm of beer joints coming into Mount Juliet as a result of that entertainment license. So to follow up with that with a question, why would this not apply to entertainment licenses as well? Or does it? If I missed that.
Well, it does.
It does apply to entertainment licenses?
Now, there's not an entertainment we have on premise and an off premises.
Right.
But they can, at the end of the year, if they have the 2 nights a week of live entertainment and meet the entertainment requirements, then they don't have to meet the 5-to-1. I do not remember that ratio they have to meet.
It's 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number of seats have nothing to do with entertainment or non-entertainment.
Okay.
They still have their 5-to-1.
So it's just clarification then. So thank you.
It's just allowing smaller places, the mom and pop pizza place.
And that would be just, of course, beer, not any
Right.
other alcoholic beverages.
All right. Vice Mayor?
To comment on that, and by the way, I have no problem with this. It's a great idea. I understand the reasoning behind it. It's called common sense. It's not something you find in government very often. So thank you. But I wanted to also explain to you that I found out just exactly what you found out is that, at the end of the year, if they don't meet the 5-to-1, they can come in and go, wait a minute. I want to apply, or I want to follow my sword here, and hopefully y'all will grant me my entertainment status rather than having an entertainment permit. Now, I don't know about you, but when we put that entertainment permit process in place through the ordinance, that was not what I was looking for. It was not what I envisioned it being. So I have a feeling we're going to wind up going back and look at that a little bit closer and saying, okay, look, we need to tweak this so that it actually is exactly what we said it was going to be, because that ain't. That puts somebody at the end of the year praying to God that they have met whatever, without knowing whether they did or not. Yeah, and that's not what we need. We're trying to help businesses succeed, not give them a reason not to.
That's all good points, but let's stay on the 40 seats.
Sorry. Yes,
That's
sir.
all right. You got questions on the 40 seats? Sounds like a club, doesn't it?
It does. Gave me an idea.
All in favor of 11A10, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? This one carries, and Vice Mayor, it does perhaps sound like that aforementioned ordinance may require some revisiting. 11A11, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance 2022-32 to accept insurance proceeds and appropriate funds for the replacement of a police vehicle. Motion? Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of 11A11, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries. 11A12, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance 2022-32 to accept a grant from Operation Light Shine and appropriate funds for a detective and vehicle for the Mount Juliet Police Department. Motion and a second. All right, any questions or comments on this? Vice Mayor?
This is a graduating grant, is my understanding.
That's correct.
So we're talking about, it starts out at 100%, 75, 50. Now, are there any restraints or requirements as far as the amount of time that has to be spent on the actual job that this is the intercept?
Yeah, so we spoke with the organization Operation Light Shine Intercept and Department of Homeland Security, and they're very flexible, which is good. Our detective can spend most of their time down at the office in the Nashville area by the airport, or when we need them out here, they can come out here. Obviously, their main task will be to serve on intercept, but if we need them here, then they will be here helping us.
Okay, and so when the grant will cover 5 years with the funding at 100, 75, 50, 25, and 0 is what I'm assuming
Correct.
Is that right?
That's
so,
it.
No, that's not the way I read it.
Well, that's
What
what's on the.
It's 100% for 3 years.
Right. And then it goes to 75 at the fourth, and then the fifth is 50%.
Okay, I'm sorry. The first 100% the first 3 years, 75 the fourth, and 50 the fifth year. So, I mean, if we're only getting 75% of his salary, are we still going to be looking at, if he needs to be, would they have him potentially 100% up there? And same goes for the fifth year. I mean, we're paying 50%.
Yeah, it's possible. The goal out of this grant program is to show the benefit of such task force in the Middle Tennessee region to combat child exploitation and human trafficking. It's basically, they're trying to seed agencies to show this benefit to the area. Now, if we as a city don't see the benefit, it allows us to pull out.
Okay, do we make application every single year?
Yes, with the MOU, and the MOU allows us to pull out every single time. Now, if we pull out mid-year, we would obviously have to refund what hasn't been spent with what we received off the grant.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of sounded like the safer grants, where if you don't.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, that, I don't think didn't the cops grant work like that at one point, where they provided a portion of the.
I guess the safer grant was fire department grants.
Yes.
So,
But the caveat there was, if you eliminated the position, you had to refund the money or some of the money.
Sure.
That's, I think, what you're trying to avoid.
And part of what we were seeing too, we have limited risk because we are a growing city. We're always adding police officers. So if somehow we did not want to continue with the grant, we would just absorb that position into our normal staff.
Okay.
Yeah. If we weren't a growing city, right, and where we're adding staff, then there would be a risk. Here, we definitely know for sure we're getting a car out of it. A detective assigned at 100% for 3 years. At the fourth year, 75%. And at the fifth year, 50%. But the city's also going to get a major benefit off the resource of this task force. All of our crimes that occur that involve children with child exploitation and also human trafficking related to the amount of hotels that we have, we get the resource of this task force in our city. That detective works the cases in our city. And they get to go back to a task force office that has a district attorney, lawyers already on staff, and all the different analysts that analyze this type of material. We gain all the software but access that they would have at this task force. It's an interesting story behind it that I don't have enough time to go into, but it's through the Tim Tebow Foundation and Operation Light Shine that have funded this without any federal government funding whatsoever because of the red tape that's in regards to federal funding. So federal officers are housed at this task force, but everything's paid for with local government through the private donations through Operation Light Shine and the Tim Tebow Foundation to basically provide better protections for children and better resources out there to go after those who are sharing child sex abuse material.
Mayor, if I may, a couple more questions. Actually, you brought something to my attention here. A lot of times when we get these grants or we work with a foundation or we work with a group, there's huge potential for the asset forfeiture consideration for us to share in that, as in when we worked with DEA or FBI or something of that nature. Is that an option here?
That wasn't mentioned. I don't know of what would be seized that's of monetary value with the type
Well, let me
of
give you an
crimes.
example. Then we're talking about trafficking and such. Say there was $1 million in the back of a loaded tractor trailer truck with 25 humans that were being shipped up here from the southern border, which is wide open, by the way. Didn't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, we know.
But you know, so there's $1 million in there, and so that $1 million would be subject to asset forfeiture, I'm assuming. Correct?
I'll assume so. And
so
I
what would be
hope,
our portion of that if we were to find that?
I would hope there would be some sharing options, but that wasn't discussed.
Oh, okay. Might want to discuss that. Yeah. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Commissioner Trevette.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing all the detail with us. You actually answered two of my questions tonight. The only last two that I have, which is one is more of a statement, which is great because hopefully we'll be able to have some cross training there with that same officer. That's a great thing there. But my main question, which is how soon are we looking to kick this off after we give the approval?
Well, our detective has already started working with the task force, just getting used to it. We haven't selected a detective yet, but we're kind of getting our detective division acclimated with the resource because they want our police department. The reason this came about is one of the main heads of Department of Homeland Security lives in our community, and they really wanted Mount Juliet to be a part of it because they know our work, that they know the support from our community and from our elected body that supports these types of efforts. And he honestly wanted his home agency a part of the program. So we were approached, some other agencies were approached, but not all agencies were approached in this, that they approached what they consider top tier agencies. So, you know, they've been going to meetings, learning about the intercept process. But if this is selected, we would have, the money is already here in the city's bank account. And y'all would allot it to the different line items. We would work on getting a car coming, and then we would work on a posting for a police officer position. And once we had enough bodies to then send to intercept, we would send it to them.
One quick last question. So you're saying that you're going to go ahead and hire the officer or promote within for the detective?
Sure.
Which one is that?
The detective position will be promoted from within, but we have to backfill with a police officer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Joe, did you two have Commissioner Mullally? I'll come back to you, Vice Mayor, if they speak.
I don't think you addressed this. So what happens at the end of 5 years?
There's no grant right now.
It's just done.
Yeah. And now,
Okay.
now say they have funding that they may do that, but it would be done. We would choose whether to still participate or not participate. But like Mr. Vice Mayor Justice stated, we do participate in the DEA. They don't provide any grant money, but we do get a benefit over the asset forfeiture, which definitely is a true financial benefit to the city. But we would have to decide as a city if it's something that would be beneficial.
Right. You think, Commissioner Hefner? Vice Mayor?
I was going to ask, what judicial district are you working out of, or would be working? Is it 15th, 22nd?
Well, they would be charged out of the 15th Judicial District if there was a crime in the 15th. But the district, it's a federal prosecutor in the office that would help with the charges. And it
So
could
it'd
be
be
federal crimes, yes. It just depends on the type of crime, what's occurring, how broad is it, and whether they want to charge federal or local.
Right. If there's no other questions, all in favor of 11A12, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? This carries on first reading. Our last item under our ordinances is 11A13, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget, ordinance 2022-32, to appropriate funds for the purchase of ambulances and equipment for the EMS department. Motion and a second. Items on the table. Any questions or comments about this? Commissioner Hefner?
A question, there's an item coming up under resolution 11B9, which is Could you tie the two together?
Related in that if you approve this ordinance to appropriate the money, the EMS department has found 2 ambulances that they would like to purchase, but these are in very high demand. And in order to hold those ambulances until we actually fully approve this ordinance, the resolution says you're allowing them to use existing already budgeted funds to put a down payment on those 2 ambulances.
Got it.
So if
Okay.
you approve this, then that follows.
Okay, we read that. Okay, got it. Thank you.
So if we don't pass this, it's not
Right.
needed.
Correct. Okay.
Like Commissioner Trevette.
Yes, sir. Chief Luffman, as I stated in a text earlier, just want to tell you and the rest of your team, thank you for everything you guys are doing. I know you guys are behind the 8 ball. I would like for you folks just to be able to just simply continue on sharing the message of just the delays that we're experiencing within our city and why, when and if that you ever get anyone that asks the question, why are we spending this money? It is because we want the safety for our citizens. So just want to make sure that that you and your team know that we greatly appreciate it, everything you guys are doing up here as well as behind the scenes, and hopefully that firehouse does get completed
sir.
sooner than later.
Yes,
So,
please.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Hey, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Why are we spending this money?
We are spending this money to create an EMS division within the fire department for the city of Mount Juliet to better serve our citizens with more opportunities for EMS transport to a higher level of care with the very best in-field medicine provided for them.
And we believe we can offer the best quality of service by doing this. for the
We are
citizens of
definitely
Mount
going
Juliet.
to improve upon the service level that we are receiving now. Of course, with 40,000 people, the increase of calls from 3,000 growing to 5,000 in the next year or two. Yes, we're going to need additional availability of transport units to get our folks to the hospital.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments on this? Vice Mayor.
We are looking at a total here, the amount financed is the word it's saying with interest added, 2,158,849.05.
Yes, if it's the wishes of the board to choose option 2, we're working, of course, Eric and Joey and I went out and looked at all of the options to gain if we were to buy it outright on the front end, or if we were to minimize the startup costs on the front end and finance that time. And basically, under finances advisement, option 1 appears to be far more attractive. It does eliminate the need for $285,000 in finance charges.
So are we offering up an option on this ordinance? Because I'm not. Sorry.
No, the ordinance is written to purchase, but what we did in the executive summary is show you why we were choosing to purchase instead of lease. Those were the 2 options that they were looking at.
Okay, so we wouldn't be financing anything. We're just paying it off in one fell swoop. We're knocking it down and moving forward, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so and I absolutely support that. If we've got the money available, why would we finance it and cost taxpayers more money?
Our efforts were just to make sure that we, brought before you every conceivable option, because $1.8 million in a check up front, is significant.
Right.
And if there was an opportunity to ease into this endeavor, we wanted to look at that. But once we consulted with the finance director, we just saw that the finance charges were unattractive in that option.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. All in favor of 11A13, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 11A13 carries on first reading, Chief. Next order of businesses is our resolutions. We have 11B1, a resolution supporting a grant application for the Cedar Creek Greenway Phase 2 project by the City of Mount Juliet for the Tennessee Department of Transportation TDOT upcoming TAP grant cycle. Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of 11B1, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 11B1 passes. 11B2, a resolution approving a proposal to the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee from the Tennessee Department of Transportation for the South Mount Juliet Road widening project and the Lebanon Road widening project, and authorizing the mayor to sign the proposals. A lot of motions. Got a motion and second. The item is on the table. Any questions or comments on this? That's true. All in favor of 11B2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That carries. 11B3, resolution accepting funds to improve East Division Street and deem requirements of ordinance 2019-45 Public Works Section 5 met. Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of 11B3, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That passes. 11B4, a resolution deeming the requirements of ordinance 2019-45 Planning and Zoning Section 12 satisfied. Motion and second. Any questions? All in favor of 11B4, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes. 11B5, a resolution approving an agreement between the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee and Reagan Smith Associates for construction, engineering, and inspection services for the construction of a roundabout at the intersection of South Green Hill Road, Willoughby Station Boulevard, and authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement. Motion. And a second. Any questions or comments? Vice Mayor?
I'm questioning the feasibility, because I know that this is one of the routes that was be taken to come from Lebanon Road going to the new interchange going across country. And I'm wondering if it makes sense to go here and spend a bunch of money to put into a roundabout, when I would assume that if that roundabout was to be built, it would be taken out if that was extended all the way to the interchange.
I actually already spent a lot of money on
I understand. I'm not real sure it was I'm not a roundabout fan. I think we already know that. But
is there anybody from Public Works?
Just the director himself. I mean,
Just
Yes. So I think to answer some of the concerns there, what we have identified for the Western Connector projects, and I keep using that plural in mindset, is that we're thinking about north-south roadways that are probably going to eventually run anywhere 10, 15, maybe upwards of 20,000 cars a day. Mount Juliet Road, by comparison, today runs about 30,000+ cars a day. A good 3-lane facility can hold 15, 18,000 cars a day, no problem. So a roundabout like this can easily manage that traffic. You know, if you had to run any scenario of maybe adding another lane, but we do have the scenario where we have an extra lane coming out of Willoughby Station that helps improve the efficiency of it. So I think from an efficiency standpoint, it should be more than willing to handle the traffic that we would expect on this roadway.
Commissioner Trevette?
Mr. Barlow, obviously, I'm like you guys have done your research. I mean, over the last couple of years, do you see this with all the accidents that have currently that's happened over the last, let's just say, 2 to 3 years? Do you see this as a benefit?
Huge. Every time I get a notification for a crash here, it makes me cringe, knowing that we've got the project in the works, and we're ready to get this thing cranking. We've needed it for a long time, and I think it's the right application for the right spot.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them either, but with this, being in my district, as well as so many students coming out of that area, heading to the elementary as well as the high school, there's got to be some type of traffic calming mechanism. And I think this is probably going to be the cleanest, most smoothest way. Would you agree?
Agreed. Definitely so.
We just got to coordinate those utility moves.
That's ongoing.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All in favor of 11B5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes with a vote of 4-1. (11B6), a resolution approving the award of a construction contract for the replacement of the Stoner Creek Sewer Interceptor and authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement. Motion. And a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That one passes. Yes, I did see the numbers on that. It's Uh, 11B7, a resolution approving an escrow agreement in the amount of $25,000 with VPG Owners LLC for the Villages at Pleasant Grove Phase 1 for payment to Water Management Systems LLC for sewers. Motion. Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of 11B7, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That passes. 11B8, a resolution to request the renaming of the South Park to Will Sellers Park from the City of Mount Juliet Parks and Greenway Board. Motion. And a second on this. So I think it's a wonderful man, a wonderful tribute to a man who gave many years of service to the city, especially when it comes to the park system. Any questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Trapp.
Sorry about that.
No,
No, I was actually at the Parks Board when this was decided, and also to his son-in-law. They actually asked to see if they were going to keep it moving in his memory for the actual, for that other committee there, for the second committee. And it looks like they're going to be closing that up and, of course, rolling it into this park as well. So
very nice.
Just more to come.
All right. All in favor of 11B8, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 11B8 passes. 11B9, a resolution authorizing the EMS department to place a hold on the purchase of 2 ambulances with the currently budgeted funds and present this resolution as intent to purchase EMS equipment to lock in current market pricing.
Motion.
Motion and second. Vice Mayor?
This is a resolution which requires one reading, but then we've got the budget amendment that would actually allow this to happen. It requires 2. So I'm not sure whether this is actually,
I think what they're asking to do is use already budgeted funds.
if we can use that. I mean, do we have that money budgeted for that already? Okay, then we're okay then. I was just worried that I didn't want this to authorize something that was not legal.
We might change our mind on.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
That would be awkward. All in favor, or any other questions or comments on this before? I think there were several. I think we had seconds, thirds, and maybe fourths.
Yeah.
11B9, any questions or comments? All in favor of 11B9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 11B9 carries. Our last item on the agenda is a discussion item, and I'll recognize our Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir. I'm going to have to actually find it now. What I have asked the city attorney to do, or Ms. Sheila, whoever, if you'll notice, this is very short, but it is taken directly from Robert's Rules of Orders and in recognition of decorum and debate rules in commission meetings. And it's a little more of a stringent guideline as to what we should or should not do and what happens if we should to choose to ignore the rules. I myself am passionate about the city that I love, and I'm very passionate about my district and the people that live in our city. And so I tend sometimes let that passion get the better of me. And I know that there are others with the same passion for the city as I have. So I think it would probably be better if there were some ground rules that were set forth and put out in form of a resolution showing that there is a decorum and debate rule in the commission meetings to be followed, and a little clearer guideline even for you to run the meetings by, I think. So that's the reason for this. It is nothing nefarious. It is very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just straight to the point without a bunch of embellishment. And yes, sir.
The only thing that jumps out to me on this is maybe a question for our attorney is some of this allows for like rebuttals to statements, and we've got our city code, section 220 lays out by ordinance our order of business. Would we need to do this as an ordinance in order to be able to get around that?
And I think we should. And number one, we already have the Robert Rules of Order applicable. And if this is a summary of that, some of this I don't recognize from the Robert's Rules, but Robert's Rules are big. We might want to pare some of this down to more bullet points including those references to city employees and rules enforcements, et cetera, and so forth. It all rests with, you have a lot of these, you have all these powers in the Roberts rules, which are already applicable to us. So with the vice mayor's permission to maybe work on this and cut it down just a bit to its bullet points, really on codes of conduct.
Well, in actuality, this particular document is another version of about 3 or 4 different resolutions, actually, that were passed by other cities, a couple of them in the state of Tennessee and others from across the country. So, and this is just adapted from those. So it's not really, you know, again, this is a discussion item, so we can have that discussion later on as to how to handle it. I don't want to do anything that's going to change the ultimate outcome, and that is that this is nothing more than a set of its decorum and rules that we go by. For instance, in the state legislature, they actually have a decorum that they go by. And they also go by Robert's Rules of Order. So, you know, if they can do it in the state legislature, there's no reason why we can't do it. And I believe it just sets a little clearer guideline. It's probably be easier here. Robert's Rules of Orders sometimes are a little harder to grab at a moment's notice when you've got a book that is about yay thick, rather than generalized rules, guidelines.
Well, I would take issue with one thing you said, and that's if the General Assembly can do it, that would mean we can do it. I'm not sure that applies in all cases, but it's probably a good starting point on that. Under rules enforcement, the third item on here, if the violation is continued, the mayor will threaten removal from the meeting room.
Correct.
Is that referring to fellow commission members?
It most certainly is. That is actually from Robert's Rules of Order.
That's not from
Yes, it is. We can pull it up and I'll show it to you. Matter of fact, I can Google it right here. That's where I found it. They can be asked and be removed if they are deflecting or disrupting the meeting.
Right.
And refuse to follow the directions of the mayor.
Right. Which I've never seen in the years that I've witnessed this body operate.
When you weren't here in 2001.
And
sorry,
I was 5th or 6th grade, I forget which. But
you ever met Bobby Frank?
and the balance in all this is a commissioner's First Amendment rights and to represent their constituents passionately, not angrily, versus proper decorum. And mentioned one of the commissioners about listening with compassion and curiosity. Compassion being you put yourself in the position of the person on the other end of the conversation so you understand what it is and what their position is. And then the curiosity part is you are actually listening to what they're saying with curiosity rather than trying to frame your response to give back to that individual. So then you've really grasped and understood. And remarkably, and I try to remember to do that, it works a lot better than me just ramming and jamming, trying to bang it over someone's head. So it's a good start. There's some liberties taken from some of these other cities, I think, that such as threat and removal from the meeting room. They're admonished and they're advised that if they don't quit, they could be removed. I don't consider that a threat. That's just a statement of fact. So, but anyway, some of this in here. And again, I wasn't here in 2001. Yeah, this, is fine for what it is. I've got another set. I've got probably 10 sets of these that different groups have used. So I'll be happy to work with the vice mayor to make this happen. I want to see what the flavor of this group was.
Yeah, I would just caution against making this board too heavily mayor centric in this, because we are a city that's designed that we're more of a legislative body and instead of an executive position here. I'd like to say I'm perfect in every way and would never abuse anything, but yeah, well, there are a few people maybe, but I'd like to say I'm perfect in every way and would never abuse anything, but I can't vouch for my replacement, so I don't know what the future may lead to this on this. But other than that, Vice Mayor, I commend any efforts in trying to clarify things and move things ahead and just add some things. Commissioner Trevette.
Gina, I just got a quick question. Obviously, this book here, I mean, there's a lot here, just so the folks understand. There's a lot of here. But obviously, what I go back to, which is if we're going to follow these rules and we keep adding on, which is what we keep talking about, where we don't want to have big government and more government and so forth. And I'm not against this, believe me, I'm not. But, but I keep going back into there's more rules and there's a rule on top of a rule and then a rule. And then guess what? That rule doesn't work. So we're going to add on another rule. Before you know it, we get away from the whole purpose of the meeting, which is to make sure that our citizens are protected, our citizens have a good product, as well as our citizens have the ability to be able to live in their place without all the rules. So I just ask, as you go through these bullet points with the vice mayor, please consider that as well as the mayors, because, I hate rules. I mean, I live in an HOA and I chose to move there. Okay. I chose to move into the city. I chose to move into the county. So again, there's rules on top of rules. Before we know it, we're losing the whole purpose of the meeting. So thank you for taking this time to go through this.
Let me catch Commissioner Mullally. We'll come back to you. Commissioner
Okay.
Mullally.
All right. Just one thing, under commission members, the fourth paragraph down, third line, the sentence that starts with no commissioner will be allowed. All right, under commission members, fourth paragraph down. And in the fourth paragraph, the third line.
I'm not
there?
on the right. Are you?
No commissioner will be allowed to attack any individual commissioner. or
Yeah,
question
that's
an
where I was
individual
trying to get
commission's
everybody to follow
integrity.
where I was. That's under commission members, fourth paragraph down.
Okay.
All right, in the fourth paragraph, the third line, the sentence that starts with no commissioner. Y'all there? Okay. I would just suggest that the word attack may be subject to one's opinion. So that I would suggest that be better defined.
And that's some of those threaten, attack, those sorts of things. Those words aren't used. They're different phrasing to try to convey the same meaning, where you address the measure proposed by commissioner as opposed to the motive for why it's presented. So, yeah.
Yeah, which is addressed in the next paragraph. But I would just like to see the word attack more defined, because it could be one's opinion of something is an attack, whereas another one may not see it as an attack. So yeah, I would just suggest that maybe kind of broken down a little more.
And I'd add to that too. Anyone up here that feels they're being attacked or maligned or any of these other terms that we have up there, you were well in your right to ask for a point of order on that, to object to it. If I don't catch it or somebody else doesn't catch it, I don't always know how everybody feels. So if you feel like you're being betrayed negatively or anything of those lots like that, it does not align with this, I'd encourage you to just call for a point of order on that. I can do a ruling real quick, and if that's incorrect, feel it's incorrect, there's also the move to override the chair. So I don't want anybody to feel like you're being singled out or any of these other things out there. Ultimately, we're here to do the business of our community, so in the most efficient way possible. Do you have anything else, Commissioner? Vice Mayor.
Sir.
You'd ask for the floor?
No, I'm good.
Oh, all right. Anyone else? All right. Anybody else in general comments on the discussion item? If not, we'll close the discussion. All right. Hearing nothing else on the discussion item, we'll close the discussion, which will bring us to the conclusion of our agenda. And if there is no objection, we are adjourned.